Hi everyone, welcome back to the Cat Scrappiness YouTube channel. My name is Marla. Today I have a quick and easy slimline card. I wanted to share how you could still use the Sugar Plum Fairies paper even though it is not Christmas. I'm starting with this Quokka'n Up stamp set. I'm going to color these off screen. I'm coloring the two Quokkas in the upper right corner, and then I'm going to also be using a floral that was in there. I'll be using the cross stitch square to create a Polaroid. This is the Wonky stitched nesting slimline. I'm going to be using the largest die, and then the Sugar Plum Fairies. There are 12 pieces of paper in this pack. It was released at Christmas. There are 3 Christmas themed papers, so the other 9 can be used throughout the winter or even into the spring. Here is that cross stitch square, and I thought that I was going to take this piece of paper, which was 3 1/4 by 4, and I was going to create my Polaroid from that. I left this in because I wanted to show you where I got my largest squares. It wasn't my initial intent. I was going to make this my Polaroid piece, but it ended up being a little bit too big because the Wonky stitched slimline that I do end up cutting out is going to be 8 1/4 by 3 1/4, and this just was not going to fit properly as the Polaroid. So I will take it over to my die cutting machine and I will cut it out, but I'm only going to use the 2 squares. For this, I cut the paper down even smaller, and I used the second to the smallest square, so I got a much smaller Polaroid. I do end up with a little bit, it's a little thin on the sides, but it was working well enough for me. It fit perfectly onto the card. It was a little bit more balanced than using that larger die. So I'm going to line these up. I'm going to tape them down. I'll pick it up and the tape is going to come off and I'm going to have to reposition it. But eventually I do get it over to my Vagabond and I cut it out. That chevron pattern, I did use the Wonky stitched rectangle on that. And I decided that I was going to bring in some of the teal paper. So I have cut the center out of it, and I did cut the paper down to 8 1/4 by 3 1/4, or 8 1/2 by 3 1/2. My apologies. And I cut the center out, so I still have that piece that I can use on another project. And I'm going to glue this down to my card base. That's a Neenah Solar White 80-pound card base. It is 8 1/2 by 3 1/2 as well. There is the Wonky stitched slimline. I cut the chevron pattern in purple out, and I'm going to layer that on top, and then we're going to start putting our squares in place. You can see the little images that I did cut. I cut them using my brother's scan and cut machine. So I'm going to lay this cattywampus. So you're going to see that I'm not layering it straight on. I have turned it just a little bit, and then I'm going to turn the second one in the opposite direction. I'm making sure to try to get an even spacing from the bottom and the top, so where those wonky stitches are, that's what I'm using as my guide. Once I lay this down, I'm going to lay down my little Polaroids. And then I'm going to lift up the bottom flap and I'm going to tuck my little Quokkas in underneath. I will have the Copic marker colors that I use listed in the description box below, as well as links to all the products that I have used. If you haven't subscribed to the Cat Scrappiness channel, we would love for you to subscribe, ring the bell so that you're notified whenever a new video is uploaded, and I do upload every Saturday. So here I am tucking in my little Quokka. These are just so adorable. I think that these little animals are so incredibly cute. And this one looks so surprised. So I'm going to take the 4 florals. I actually colored 5, but I'm only going to use 4. I'm going to place them where I think they're going to look good, and then I'm going to take some small little double-sided foam tape dots, and I'm going to place them on the back, and then I'm going to adhere them to those corners. And once I adhere them to the corners, I'll realize that I still need to stamp my sentiment. So the one on the bottom upper left, that one I'm going to remove so that I can stamp my sentiment. I am going to use a sentiment from the stamp set. It's going to say, "I miss you." And I thought that that was really appropriate since I have not seen any of my friends or family, not necessarily because of the pandemic, but just because of things that have been going on. And my son is back in South Dakota, and so I'm kind of, you know, I'm kind of missing my friends and my family. So this would be a cute card for me to send out. I'm going to place these down right here in opposing corners. And I did tie in that teal with the flowers, and I'm going to think that I still need a little bit more teal. I think that it's just a little bit, it's just missing some, so I'm going to take a scrap piece of paper that I had that was about a 1/2 inch wide, and I'm going to cut it down to a 1/2 inch by 8 1/4. So that piece on the right hand side, I will eventually cut that down, and I'm going to glue that onto the front panel, and I think that that just balances out the colors so much better. So here's where I'm using that stamp. I'm going to line it up on the left side. I did bring in a T-square ruler to make sure that I had it straight. I did cut that out, and then I'm going to use some VersaFine ink, and I'm going to stamp that. I'll stamp it a couple times to make sure I get a really good impression, and then I will place that flower back on. There you go. So now we're going to add that strip. I'm going to cut it down so that it's that 3 1/4 inch width. There we go. I'm going to add some of that art glitter glue to the center of that piece. And there we are. We're going to lay it down right here. Finally, I'm going to bring in some glossy accents. They're Nuvo glossy accents. I can't remember what the name is. They will be listed in the description box below. And I'm going to glaze over the eyes, and that's going to be my card for today. So I want to thank you so much for watching. If you've admired the Sugar Plum Fairies paper and you haven't purchased it yet, you can still use it. There are 9 sheets of paper in there that are still usable throughout the year. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fabulous day.